Hello pilots and welcome to another Eve Echoes video. This is Gromire here, and today I'm going to be going over some of the basics of gate camp navigation. So I'm going to be using my Arbitrator 2 Covert Ops as an example ship here. We're going to open up the fittings and just show you a bit of some of the most important key mods to have on your ship when you're trying to get through the gate camps. Okay, so the first thing that's going to be the most important is going to be your cloak. This ship is able to use a Covert Ops cloak. That means that you can warp while you're stealthed. This is going to be the most common cloak used when you're trying to get through gate camps, but it's not the only cloak you can use, and we'll go over that in a little bit. In fact, let's just go ahead and open up the market here so we can go over some of the other items that you can use and some of the ships that use them. Okay, we'll scroll down to the low slot items here, and you can see there's our Covert Ops cloak. That's the one that we have equipped to this ship, but there is a second cloak, and that's just a plain cloaking device. The two key differences between the cloaking device and the Covert Ops cloaking device is that the regular cloaking device is going to reduce your speed drastically, and you're not going to be able to warp away while you're stealthed. So very important to know when you're getting in your ship, when you're choosing your ship to use, which ones can fit the Covert Ops cloaking device, and to make sure that you are using the right module on that ship. Okay, so let's go into some other ships that might be using these cloaks. Krios, no, doesn't have it. Nearest, no, Tech 7 doesn't have it yet. Nearest 2, that's it. So this one can fit a Covert Ops cloaking device, and this is what makes it one of the better hauling ships, specifically for minerals. You can use that Covert Ops cloak to your advantage. Going into the frigate, another example would be, not the basic, right, Covert Ops, there it is. So all of the exploration frigates, if you're not Tech 10, then you're going to be using the Covert Ops ones, which obviously can use the Covert Ops cloaking device. Also, the Tech 10 explorers can use the Covert Ops cloaking device. My personal favorite to use for exploration and for hauling is the Magnate Covert Ops. That's just because I like the extra cargo hold, but the other ships have their advantages as well. Speaking of advantages, let's pull up the Astero here. This is going to be the most commonly sought out for exploration ship to be using. It can fit the Covert Ops cloaking device. It has the 100% cloaking device delay, and it has bonuses to exploration. So you're going to see this very often when people are out trying to find those data sites. And one of the reasons why I wanted to put this video together is specifically for a couple of corp mates who are having some difficulties navigating through nullsec and getting through these gate camps and learning the basics and the mechanics of the game. So not to throw anybody under the bus or anything, everybody has to start somewhere, but this has inspired me to kind of put this together. And hopefully it can help others too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump through the 1 SMEB gate here. This is a common gate camp area, but luckily today there's nothing here. So we're going to hop onto the other side into lowsec. We're going to go over some of the basics that you need to know before you start navigating. Okay, rule number 1, never sit on a gate uncloaked. If there's neutrals or reds in the system, they may attack you even if it's lowsec. Okay, so don't just sit there and being vulnerable. Stealth up if you have the option. Second point I'm going to make is know your most common gate camp locations. These are usually going to be the gates that lead from lowsec to nullsec or vice versa. These are going to be considered common choke points that the enemy is going to guard or your side is going to guard to try and keep the other team from getting into other territory. So for my alliance, you can see one example here, Soct and Smed, and also Ned up here into the north, coming all the way down here, long path. And one of the reasons why I zoom in is so that I can see these kind of crosses here. It doesn't end up in that system. It still continues all the way down here. Keep going. This is a long warp path. There it is. So that gate from null leading to K4 is going to be a good example also of something that might be camped and something you need to be aware of when you're navigating in and out of nullsec and lowsec space. The next thing I want to talk about is the difference between short route and safe route. Currently I'm set for a short route, so you'll see it takes me back through nullsec. We're going to go here and click on where it says 11 jumps and change that to prefer safer. That's going to change our autopilot path so that we're going through a safer route, which is essentially going to be through lowsec instead of nullsec, which is something to definitely pay attention to every time you're going to set your autopilot path. Okay, so we're in lowsec here in NOHEL. It's a 0.1 system, which means you're going to be safe around the gates. You don't have to worry about gate camps in lowsec. But what we want to do is we want to get to JITA from here. So if we set our autopilot path, you'll see that we're still set for safest route, which means it's going to navigate us all the way to JITA on autopilot. We can turn off the game. We'll be fine. No gate camps to worry about. You can even click on your map on the left there where it has the path, and you can see every system that you're going to travel through to make sure that you're not going to hit any nullsec systems and not going to run into any gate camps at all. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is not checking that it's set to safe route when they're going to autopilot offline. Okay, for this example, we're going to be setting it to shortest route, and you can see here that because of that, we're going to be traveling through Syndicate Space. Syndicate Space is a very well-known area for gate camps because, like I mentioned previously, it's people taking advantage of the fact that you forgot to set your autopilot to safe and it's still set to short, and you're going to go right into them in their gate camps on your way to JITA. So my goal in this part of the video is going to be to hopefully find a gate camp and show you how to manually pilot your way through it. Alright, now that we know that we're approaching nullsec space, we're going to want to turn off our autopilot and manually fly through these gates. And if you set your overview to Stargate, you'll see that our autopilot path is highlighted in yellow. So the overview will tell you which gate you want to jump through on your path to your final destination. Since we know we're jumping into a low-sec system, there's nobody in our system currently, everything should be safe. We're going to go ahead and just jump right through. Little side thing to note here is that as you're warping through, you'll see the local list actually updates and tells you that there's enemies in the system before you've come through. So you have about 30 seconds where your ship is going to remain cloaked. You want to kind of take your time, survey the area, check out the people that are in the system, and see if you're in any immediate danger. We are still in low sec, however, because we're approaching a null sec system, these could be scouts. They could be watching to see what ships come through. They could be stealth themselves and just trying to see what's coming up. So one jump out from null is about the time where we want to start to be cautious. And I'm going to take you through here. We're going to be super safe coming through. We're going to warp at a distance, and we're going to warp over there cloaked. We don't want to give them any clues. We don't want them to know what ship we're in or what we're coming through with, because there could be people on the other side waiting for us, and the more information that they have, the more prepared they'll be to take you out. Okay, we are at the gate right before nullsec. We can see there's nobody in the area. They could still be stealthed, we don't know. So we're gonna approach with caution. We're gonna approach cloaked. It might be a little bit slower, it might not be fun, but this is how we keep ourselves safe and we keep our IP intact. Alright, now that we're a little bit closer, we can turn off our cloak, we can hit that micro warp drive, and we can slide in real quick before anybody notices us. And let's go ahead and try and navigate through this nullsec. Okay, so we're already noticing a neutral on the other side. We're gonna hold our cloak, which means we're not going to move. We're not gonna approach, we're not gonna warp at anything. We're gonna survey the area, check our list, make sure that there's no ships nearby, and make sure there's no gate blocking us from warping away. Now that we know it's clear, we're gonna look for the next warp gate, but we're not gonna warp right on top of it because that neutral that's in the system could be doing a gate camp on the other side, on the gate that we want to go to next. So we're gonna warp to it at a distance while cloaked. And we might as well check his corporation and his alliance status while we're waiting. Cool. No gate camp. It looks like the guy might be either in a station or AFK or just a scout. So the good thing is there's no orange bubble around that gate and we should be relatively safe to get through it. Now I want to show two different ways that you can do this as quickly as possible with the least amount of time of your ship showing what ship type you are on the screen. The first way you can do it is you can actually align to a planet or another gate in the distance while you're stealth and just slow boat your way in that direction. Once you get to 150 kilometers, like you'll see in a bit after I fast forward, you can actually warp right to the gate without having to approach or slow boat your way to it. Okay, we've got another name enter the system, so we want to be a little bit more cautious. Every time a name comes up on that list, we want to be more and more cautious here. Better to be safe than sorry. And another name. So this also provides us an opportunity while we're stealth to scout out what ship types are coming through. Are they going to be starting a gate camp? Are they just passing through? This looks like a fleet of scepters are coming. So we're going to hang out here. We're not going to warp to that gate. And it's actually a lot better that I did the approach away from the gate to warp to it later than to be currently approaching it, just in case. That's why that method is actually my preferred method of doing it. You align to a planet or something else in the distance until you get 150 kilometers approximately off of the gate you want to be at. Then you can warp to it. So let's actually hang out a bit here and kind of see what's going on and make sure it's safe before we try to approach again. Okay, so it's kind of slowed down here. Let's undo our cloak and hit jump right to that gate. Now that we're at 150 kilometers out, we're gonna warp right to that gate, and as long as no bubble appears during this time, we should go right to it and right through. Great, so we've made it through our first gate. We can see the local list update for the other side, and we know that there are more enemies on the other side. Again, we're gonna hold our cloak, we're not gonna move, and we're gonna check and make sure we're not currently in a gate camp bubble. Okay, so everything looks clear here. Instead of warping to the next gate right away, because we have reds in the system, we're gonna warp to a planet. And the reason we do this is because if they are running a gate camp, likely it's gonna be between two common systems. So they're gonna put their bubble basically in between the two stargates because they're going to try and capture people who are warping from stargate to stargate. So if we come from a planet instead of a stargate, we'll be at a different angle and we might have a better chance of getting through or at least avoiding whatever bubble camp they might have set up. Now that we're at a planet, we can go ahead and select the next gate and we're going to want to warp to it at a distance. Still, we have reds in the system. We want to make sure that we're not warping straight into a bubble. So let's come in at 100, let's stay cloaked, and let's see what's over there. All right, we've come in at 100 kilometers here. Everything looks good. There's nobody gate camping. I want to stress this 1,000 times. If you have a cloak on your ship, especially a covert ops cloak, you should have it on as often as possible. So I'm probably gonna watch this video back and hear myself say, with your cloak on, about 1,000 times, but remember to make sure your cloak is on. That wheel on the bottom right should be spinning. If it's not, that means you're vulnerable. So just a little tip, pay attention to that cloak. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing one more time. We're gonna approach the opposite direction of that gate until we get to 150 kilometers and then warp straight to it. Okay, now make sure that if you're going to want to go through this gate, you hit jump and not warp. This will take you right up next to the gate, about 2 kilometers away from it, and you'll go right through without being stopped at all, as long as there's no bubble. And most of the time, if somebody uncloaks or comes through the gate, they won't have time to react to you doing this anyway. All right, and we're through. Next gate, let's see what's on the other side. Local list updates, ooh, a sigil. Can I kill that? I don't know. No. Okay, I think he's stealthed. That might just be a scout, so we're gonna pretend we didn't see that. We're still stealth because we just came through the gate, so he doesn't know we're here or what we are, but there's definitely somebody looking out, so even more caution goes into this process now. The good news is that because we know what ship that name in local is in, we know he's not next to that other gate. So we can go straight to our next path and not have to worry about a gate camp in this system currently. Okay, finally we have an empty system here. This is an easy call. You can just jump straight through that next gate. You don't have to worry about a bubble being up. You don't have to be worried about anyone in the system. And by the time that you get over there, nobody will be able to stop you, especially if you're in a smaller ship like the one that we're using. There is a mechanic that I just learned about that I might put out another video on, which is if you start warping before they put their bubble up, it won't stop you. So even if somebody came through the gate, turned on that bubble real quick, they wouldn't be able to stop our warp at whatever range they have. It will go right through because we started warping before they set it up. This is a super interesting game mechanic that I just found out about thanks to some Alliance members, and I want to go more in depth on it, so we'll leave that for another video. Okay, we're getting closer to our final destination here. Gray in the system, make sure that you treat grays as if they're reds. Grays and reds, it doesn't matter. If it's not blue or purple or green, it is probably trying to kill you. So we're gonna do the same strategy. We're gonna go to the gate at a distance while cloaked, and we're gonna scout it out. All right, everything looks clear here. One of the advantages of warping in at 100 kilometers is that instead of approaching the gate and having to fly 100, you can, like we've done before, approach backwards, go to 150, and that way you only have to travel 50 kilometers. So this is a huge advantage that, one of the reasons why I like to use this strategy better. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it's much more beneficial to use it this way and definitely has its more advantages than just going straight at the gate. All right, we're one jump away from low sec into safe zone, and looks like we have a few people in local here, so we're going to be really cautious approaching this next gate because this one, like we talked about earlier in the video, is going to be the highest likelihood chance of being a gate camp because it's a choke point between low sec and null sec. So we'll get our proper angle here by warping to a planet first. Keep that cloak on as often as you can. As soon as you hit warp, your ship will start to move, and as soon as you start to move, your cloak will drop from passing through the gate, and you can click your cloaking device right away. It's literally milliseconds of anybody being able to see what you're in or lock onto you. So use that cloak as often as possible. Okay, let's warp to our next destination at 100 and scout it out. Let's see if there's any action going on next to the choke point. And you can see it as you approach. Even though I come in at 100, man, that bubble almost touches me. That feels like a big gate camp bubble. And we have a couple capital ships. No, one capital ship and one dictator. That's a heavy interdiction ship that's going to be really tough to take down. And we got to get through that gate, and we're pretty far off. So we're going to kind of zoom out here, check our surroundings, check where we are. You will notice that item inside the bubble, either a wreck or a box. I can't really tell what it is from here, but if you get within 2 kilometers of that, that will decloak you. So we want to find a safe path to the gate from the best angle as possible. And you can see they kind of staggered it one direction. That means they're probably looking to catch targets coming from one of the other gates, but because we came in from a planet, we have a little bit better angle on here to get to that stargate. So we're going to begin our approach here. We're going to make sure our cloak stays on, and we're going to make sure nothing gets within, I want to say 20 kilometers of us. If it gets that close, that would be a time to panic. So hopefully we can kind of sneak in here, sneak past them. It looks like they're about 50, 60 kilometers off. So I don't even think they would have time to lock us, but let's get in real close just to be as safe as possible. And we're going to take our time. Be patient. Don't rush this, because if you rush it, you could screw it up pretty bad. One thing you want to watch for is other people coming into the gate, because not only is that going to cause a little bit of activity and people orbiting around it, but people coming through have a chance to decloak you. If they get within 2 kilometers of you, your cloak will drop and you will be targetable. So pay attention to your surroundings as you're getting closer. When you get within 5 kilometers, you can turn off that cloak, hit your micro warp drive if you need to, and you'll jump right through. Perfectly safe. They have no chance of targeting you within that amount of time, and you're safe. You're in low sec now. You're free to go. But right now you're probably wondering, hey Gromire, what happens if I come the other way? What happens if I want to go in the bubble on the other side of the gate? How do I get out of that? So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to show you. Okay, same basic principles apply. We can see the local list load up with some enemies in the space. We're going to hold our cloak from warping through, and we're going to assess our area. How close are we to getting out of the bubble? Are there any ships near us? What's the fastest way to get out of range of this so that we can warp off? Once you find that shortest path, double click into space, put your cloak on immediately, and get out of that bubble as soon as you can. As soon as your ship starts moving, you can put that cloak on, and the goal is to get outside of range and warp away as soon as possible. If you're too slow at putting that cloak on after you start moving, they're going to know your general vicinity, and they're going to speed their way into your direction to see if they can cloak you, because remember, if they get within 2 kilometers of your ship, you'll drop that cloak and they can target you. That's why it's very important to survey your area while you're cloaked coming through the gate and pick your shortest path outside of the bubble. Okay, we are right on the edge, poking through, and as soon as you see that empty space there, you are free to warp, especially if you have a covert ops cloak. If you had a regular cloak, you could just turn it off right now and warp away, but perfectly safe. We made it through both ways. Now, unfortunately, I did this a little backwards, and I actually do want to go to Jita, so I'm going to go back, and this time, this is what happens if you just straight warp to a gate, but you're cloaked. Now, when you hit the edge of that red bubble, it's going to stop your warp. You're going to be on the perimeter of their bubble. The good thing, and the reason why we use a cloaky ship like the Astero, like the Probe Explorer, like the Nearest, especially with the Covert Ops 2 cloak that we can use while warping, is that we're going to be stealthed as soon as we hit their bubble. So we're still going to be safe. As long as nothing is within 2 kilometers of us, we can slow boat, as they say, our way to the warp gate. So one more time, let's slowly approach, and we'll go through when we get closer. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Big thank you to our neutral friends here for providing this content for me, so I didn't have to go searching for this for a week. And yeah, safely pathed to Jita. So I hope that you learned something from this. I hope that it saves your ship from a loss later on, and let's continue to enjoy Eve Echoes. If you have any other tips that you want to add, any other comments, feel free to type them below. Like the video, come back for more, and I'll try to do more of these kind of guides, more of these little tips and tricks that I find that people recommend to me, and try to showcase them in the game so that you can actually see them in action. Other than that, I'll see you guys in Jita.